The sad fact about the Middle East is that even if the Arabs and the Israelis ever do make peace, Israel will still be at war with itself. It's a war of the Jews. It's being waged today. The issue? Whose country is this? Does it belong to the grandchildren of Israel's secular founders who want a liberal democracy? Or does it belong to the Orthodox Jews who want to turn the Jewish state into a really Jewish state? In Israel's civil war, it's easy to spot the opposing factions by their uniforms. One side dresses like most of us and wants a country which looks like California or the Côte d'Azur. The other side wears black and sports beards and wants a religious state ruled by the rabbis and religious law.
We're not really connected to one another. We're not really part of the same people. And we're fighting over who gets to control this country.
Author and former government official Ze'ev Chefetz is terrified by the prospect of a religious takeover and believes the possibility of compromise is diminishing by the day.
Does that mean there's going to be a war?
There already is a war. We're at war with one another today. It's a mostly non-violent war, although occasionally it gets violent.
Struggle for power, is that what it is?
Yeah, because the religious here they're not trying to convince anybody with philosophical arguments. These are politicians, and like all politicians, they're engaged in a struggle for political power.
But that struggle is very new. Until recently, ultra-Orthodox Jews were not interested in having political power. The country was run by farmers and soldiers, the guys who made the desert bloom and won the wars. There were religious people, but their numbers were small, and they were happy to stay in their neighborhoods, their schools, and their synagogues. But then their numbers grew, and their political parties became powerful, so powerful that they now hold the balance of power. In fact, the most spectacular success in Israel's elections last year was that of a religious party which wants, among other things, to close down all roads, restaurants, and places of entertainment on the Sabbath. That was, in effect, a declaration of war.
We don't want to obey religious laws in our daily lives.
Tommy Lapid is a television personality who entered into the political arena to run in last year's elections. The party he leads has one platform: stop the religious.
We have to fight this phenomena and explain even to them that it's wrong what they are doing, that we are living now in a time of computers and God is living somewhere in Seattle and preparing the next issue of Microsoft.
Did you say God is living somewhere in Seattle?
Yes.
Lapid's party came from nowhere and did amazingly well with barbed rhetoric like that and with outrageous TV ads like this.
Sabon kasher, shampoo kasher.
One of the things he says is that keeping kosher is not a religious obligation. It is a fine business and amounts to nothing less than absurd rabbinical endorsement. There is kosher soap, kosher shampoo, even kosher dog food, and kosher toilet paper.
Okay, so here you see the propaganda. Because I never bought kosher toilet paper. Never. I never bought kosher food for my dogs. So it's propaganda. And it's a lie.
Abraham Ravitz is an ultra-Orthodox member of parliament who believes that by voting for Tommy Lapid's party, Israeli voters made a mistake of historic proportions.
The Israeli society is very wrong by having, the first time in history, a fascist party.
Fascist party?
Yeah. Tommy Lapid, I think he is the one person that came up with a party only for one issue: to hate religious people or whatever it looks like Jewish people.
People have accused you of contributing yourself very personally to the polarization, of whipping up anti-religious hatred. Some people we've talked to have accused you of being anti-Semitic.
Yes, which is funny. I am a survivor of the Holocaust. I lost my father and 16 members of my family in the Holocaust. To accuse me of being anti-Semitic is like accusing the Pope of being against the Catholic faith.
But this is the Middle East, where gravity moves to the extremes, and the center does not hold. Nowhere else on earth is so much passion confined to such small quarters. Just look at what's happening on one beach on one day. The religious ushering in the Jewish New Year with ancient rite and ritual. The secular, just a few dunes away, seeing the holiday as just another reason to play in the sun. Two worlds on one beach. But whose beach is it? Whose Israel is it?
I think there's a lot of people that would give their lives to make Israel like any other state.
Aaron Feldman is an American-born rabbi who's lived in Israel for 39 years.
The whole thrust of their lives is simply to imitate America, and the most popular word in advertising here is "like America." The Star Spangled Banner, you probably see it more here than in anywhere in the United States.
It's true everywhere in the world. Is that a bad thing here?
Yes, it's a very bad thing here, because we're losing our Jewish identity. And if we lose our Jewish identity, there's no reason to remain a Jewish state. We might as well pack up and all move to Wisconsin or anywhere else.
Wisconsin? Sure. A lot of secular Israelis would move to Wisconsin if they could get green cards. And one of the reasons is their fear that if they stay home in Israel, the fundamentalists will take over, as they did in Iran.
This is a Jewish type of fundamentalism which is as abhorrent as a Catholic or Protestant or Muslim type of fundamentalism.
But these are not fundamentalist ayatollahs, they're rabbis. Do you really think they're intent on establishing a theocracy?
We have to believe what they are saying. They are saying that they want to establish a theocracy. Why wouldn't we believe them?
And yet, we were in Jerusalem.
How can you not believe a rabbi?
Tommy Lapid says that you and your colleagues are striving for a fundamentalist state.
If I believe in God, is that a fundamentalist? I believe in God. I believe that the purpose of life is to serve God, become a better person, become a kinder person, become a more committed person to spiritual values. Am I a fundamentalist?
According to Naomi Reagan, the answer is yes. She's a best-selling novelist and another critic of the ultra-Orthodox, but she's outraged them even more than Tommy Lapid. And that's because Naomi Reagan is one of them. She's deeply observant, but believes religion should play no role in politics.
I think that when you make religion a component of political deals, when you make religion a reason for demanding economic power and all kinds of favoritism, and you put a lot of thieves in saints' clothing in charge of public funds, then what you're doing is desecrating that religion.
It's pretty strong language, thieves in saints' clothing.
Oh, absolutely.
What Naomi Reagan, her few fellow religious dissidents, and the entire secular community rail against are the schools, the religious schools which are called yeshivas. They've always been funded by the state, but the growing power of the religious parties is funneling more and more money to the schools and their pupils. Pupils? There are more than 67,000 of them, and many are in their 40s and 50s. That's all they do, study. They're all on welfare and are totally unapologetic.
We believe that we're performing a vital function for the Jewish people by producing educated, committed, proud Jews. That's historically, that's the only way the Jewish people has been kept alive.
They maintain that without their Talmud scholars, their soldiers of God, as they call them, Judaism will disappear. They are preserving the Jewish character of the Jewish state, and they are preserving Judaism itself.
Can you say bullshit on 60 Minutes? It's nonsensical.
Why is it nonsensical?
Because what they are has nothing to do with Judaism. The only thing that they teach their kids how to do is to repeat the things that they learned themselves by heart 30 years before. They don't build anything, they can't cure anything, they can't discover anything, they don't work, they don't serve in the army, they don't do anything.
That they're exempt from serving in the army is what the rest of Israel cannot tolerate. The army is not only the institution which has saved Israel's existence
several times, it's the foundation of Israeli society, the rite of passage where Israeli boys and girls get their cards punched for adulthood. Everybody goes into the army, always has. Everybody, that is, except the ultra-Orthodox. But once again, they have their reasons.
Well, we have a question of priorities, right? Should we interest ourselves with the spiritual level of the Jewish people, or should we interest ourselves with the physical defense? There are other people that can help in the physical defense, but very few people that can help in the spiritual continuity of the Jewish people. That's our choice.
Why should their boys join the army when the army doesn't want them and the army certainly doesn't need them?
What I care is that they should not be exempted. There cannot be some Jews who are good enough to die and some Jews who are good enough to pray. If we would all follow their commandment to join their yeshivas, who would defend this country? They say God will defend this country. Well, God didn't defend the Jews in the Holocaust. He slept. He nodded.
But the most feared army in the Middle East has a new unit, a brand new unit made up of ultra-Orthodox volunteers. They are dissidents or dropouts, depending on your point of view, but they wanted to leave the yeshivas and take up arms. The army couldn't say no and took great pains to accommodate them. Special kosher food, camps with no women, weapons training supplemented by worship. 26-year-old Meir Elbaum decided this was for him. He reached that conclusion after his best friend, the soldier, was killed fighting in Israel's war in Lebanon.
When he died, I started to the first time to think to myself, come on, where are you? Sitting in the yeshiva, hanging around the streets, marketing, making business. You have to do something for the people also, for the community, for the country. And I said, come on, if you want to be a man got to do what a man got to do. So I wanted to go fight.
But neither side has embraced the experiment. The rabbis have denounced it. They don't want to lose their boys. And the secular parties have declared they won't be satisfied with yeshiva dropouts. They want them all, whether the army needs them or not. So while a few good-natured boys take up arms to bridge the gap, the civil war continues. But many on both sides think the outcome is a foregone conclusion. It will not be decided by right and wrong because there is no right or wrong. It will be decided by power, and since Israel is a democracy, that means numbers. Within a generation, Israel's prime minister may well be wearing a black hat. And that's because while secular families have an average of 2 children, ultra-Orthodox families have more than 7.